Happy New Year, Revivalists. How's it going? It's Simon here from CD Revival, and today I'm going to do my first ranking video of 2023. We started off big, and my first ranking is going to be from the band Metallica. Obviously a massive band. Everyone, you know, kind of has an opinion on Metallica, past and present. I certainly have. So I'm going to be ranking their 10 studio albums, showing a few other bits that I've got from them, and let you know what I think of their past and present discography. So let me know what you think when you've seen the video. Let me know what your favourites are, and also click a like, and if you like the video, please subscribe to my channel. And yeah, we'll get on with that then. So yeah, a band that, like, you know, polarizes opinion. Some people like certain eras, some people don't like certain eras, and I'm pretty much the same as them. But my number 10, so my least favorite Metallica album, is their 2003, probably come as no surprise. It's their 8th studio album, Saint Anger, produced by Bob Rock. And he actually does the bass guitar on this as well. Rob Trujillo had replaced Jason Newsted, I think, halfway through the recording, but he doesn't play bass on the album. I say it is done by Bob Rock, who also produces. Last album produced by Bob Rock as well. So yeah, it's not really much to say about this that hasn't been said before. It's not even the production. I mean, the production on it is kind of shameful, to be honest with you. I mean, the drums obviously well documented. It sounds like someone kicking a toolkit down the stairs. Guitars are pushed way back. But the main thing about this that I don't like is the songs, really. I think the songs are fairly uninspired. They're kind of quite un-Metallica-like, whatever that is these days. And just kind of boring. They go on for too long. There's no guitar solos, and it just sounds like, you know, it just goes on and on. It's quite long, and yeah, fairly uninspiring, really. A few tracks are okay. I mean, it starts off with Frantic, which is all right, and Saint Anger, which I think is an okay track. Some Kind of Monster's another fairly famous one on there, which is also pretty cool. Unnamed Feeling, another single from there. I quite like Sweet Amber, but yeah, it's not like a hateful album that I really despise. This is the DVD edition as well, so yeah, it's got like a DVD with it, which I think is Rehearsals, which it does feature Trujillo, but yeah, not a very good album. It's been well documented that it's not a good album, and good, probably their best artwork, quite honestly. Pushead does the design on there, and yeah, that's pretty decent. So got no arguments with that. But I remember when it first came out, it was probably received a lot kinder just because of the albums that came before it. At least they sort of tried to go a bit heavier again, because obviously they're known for being one of the pioneers of thrash metal, and this one definitely is like a heavier album than what they were doing before. And it is a heavy album, but it's just like they say, the songwriting is fairly uninspired, and the production, which, you know, as you'll see later on in the ranking, there's some of they suffer from production, like pretty much through a lot of their albums, really. But the production I can forgive if the songwriting and the songs are there, but on this one they're really not. So yeah, 2003 Saint Anger, easily my number 10, and it's just a hard listen. To listen to it all the way through is, you know, takes a little bit of dedication, I think. So that's my number 10. My number 9 is Load from 1996, their 6th album. This one's produced by Bob Rock. It's the 2nd album that he did with them, and yeah, once again, they changed their style from obviously the album before this. They've gone for a softer style with a few different genres going on. There's a bit of southern rock. They've changed their image to a degree, and yeah, I remember when this came out, it was like, yeah, just so disappointing. We saw them on the Milton Keynes Bowl show, and Obviously the Metallica album had come out before that, which was a bit of a departure from previous. They'd like sort of lost their thrash roots. And it's a bit of a running joke with me and my brother, where they, you know, they were like, yeah, we're going to do the new one now. And the new one they did was 2x4. And it's just like, what's this, man? You're coming out with this new sort of supposedly killer track, and it's really just this waka waka wah, not good. And just a, yeah, disappointing album. A lot lighter than they've done before. Ain't My Bitch ain't too bad a track. 2x4 is horrible. Until It Sleeps was the first single. That's okay. King Nothing's probably one of the better tracks on here. Bleeding Me's not too bad. The Outlaw Torn's a fairly decent one to finish off. The rest of it's kind of pap. I generally don't like it. A friend of mine was sort of saying, like, you know, this one and the Reload album, they're, you know, if you take any of the tracks from them in isolation, and they don't sound too bad if you listen to just like a track at a time, but to listen to the whole thing, I think this is their longest album. And it's not good. It's just bland and, you know, not what Metallica for me are all about. So that's my number 9. My number 8, probably no surprise, is Reload. 7th album came out a year later in 1997. Apparently they had enough. They were going to do like a double album, and that would have been way too much at once for, you know, just disappointingness. This one I do like a little bit better. I think it's a little bit heavier. I think the songwriting's a little bit better on this one. Fuel's a fairly decent track, which I think they still play live to this day. Memory Remains I quite like. I'm not a massive fan of the Marianne Faithfull na-na-na-na bits in it. I don't think they really add to the track particularly. Devil's Dance I quite like. Unforgiven 2 I think is fairly good. Better Than You is an interesting one. It's a bit of a sort of new wave of British heavy metal, almost sort of Judas Priest-esque. I don't know if that's just because of the title of it, but yeah. Where the Wild Things Are, I don't really like that one. Fixer I think is an okay one, but it's an okay album. Very similar to Load, but I think it's slightly higher songwriting quality on there. But yeah, nothing massive to write home about. It's not really what I would consider a great Metallica album. So that's my Reload from 1997. That's my number 8. Now we're into ones that I actually genuinely like. Number 7's most recent album is Hardwired To Selfdestruct. It's their 10th album from 2016. Yeah, lots to like on this one. Greg Fiedelman did the production on this. This is the 3-disc version. So it's got bonus tracks on it as well, which is some live stuff, like there's a Ronnie James Dio medley, which I'm not a massive fan of either, but anyway, it's okay. A couple of other, but I think Remember Tomorrow by Maiden as well. There's a cover of that on here. But yeah, it's obviously a heavier, thrashier album. Some good long stuff on here. Starts off really well. The Hardwired is a really cool track. Atlas Rise I really like. Now That We're Dead is excellent as well. Moth Into Flame. So first 4 tracks are really, really cool. It does drop off a little bit. Some other good stuff on here. Man and Kind. Spit Out the Bones, like to finish off with, a really cool, fast, heavy track. But yeah, definitely a massive improvement on the ones that I previously mentioned. Hence it being my number 7. Long album, like 2 CDs. Well, 3 including the bonus stuff as well. But yeah, a good album. Easily my number 7. That's their most recent one up until their new one, which is due out in April this year. So I'll review that one when that one comes in. But yeah, Hardwired To Selfdestruct, my number 7. Number 6, I've got the album that came before that, which is Death Magnetic. That one came out in 2008. This is their 9th album. Produced by Rick Rubin, famous for its sort of brick wall production, basically. So yeah, very loud album, which, say, I don't really mind that too much. There is a version, if you like, there's a, you know, the Guitar Hero version, which is produced a little bit better. But say they're no stranger to a slightly dodgy production. Similar album to Hardwired, I think, this one, but I think this is a little bit more, I prefer the tracks on it. It's not quite so sort of long-winded. There's less sort of, I don't know what I would call filler, really. But yeah, starts off, This Was Just Your Life, That Was Just Your Life, should I say, End of the Line, Broken, Beaten, Scarred, and The Day That Never Comes, which is probably one of their best tracks they've done for many a year, I think. In that sort of slow, sort of then fast kind of vein. All Nightmare Long, Cyanide, Unforgiven 3, which I really like as well. Judas Kiss, Suicide and Redemption, which is an instrumental track, which is once again first instrumental track they've done since Justice, in that sort of vein. And then finishing off with My Apocalypse, which is a really fast, good track. But yeah, when this came out, I was so relieved that they'd actually done a semi-decent album that I did listen to it a lot. And got rid of Bob Rock, who I feel kind of led the band in a style that I didn't really enjoy. All the albums they did with Bob Rock for me were like them pandering to him, basically, to a degree. And he gave him a lot of success. You can't really argue with that. But yeah, not my favourite sort of era of the band, shall we say. So yeah, Rick Rubin I think was a good improvement. He's done a lot with bands where he brings them back to their sort of almost former glories, and sort of he's done that with a few different artists. And Death Magnetic I think was no exception. So really good album. Yeah, quite enjoyable. And that's my number 6, Death Magnetic from 2008, 9th studio album. Number 5, I've got the album Metallica, the Black Album it's sometimes called. Obviously easily their most successful album, and I think it sold like 16 million copies in America, so you can't really argue with that. Once again, was disappointed when this came out. The lead single, Enter Sandman, I did really enjoy that when it first came out, and the rest of the album sort of follows that sort of vibe. Really good. You can't argue with the production on this, but a little bit more simplistic than they've been doing before. So it's obviously worked for them. You've got Enter Sandman, obviously Sad But True. Holier Than Thou, probably my favourite track on here. Unforgiven, we know that one. Wherever I May Roam, Don't Tread on Me, they're a little bit filler, I think. Through the Never, you've got Nothing Else Matters, which is a super ballad. Wolf and Man, which is another good one. The God That Failed, that's a really cool track. My Friend in Misery is a bit filler. Struggle With Him's not the best either. So I would say this is an overrated album, but it's done the business for Metallica and made them the band that they are today. But yeah, definitely my number 5. Probably, yeah, I don't know why it's above Death Magnetic and the rest of them, because they are heavier albums than this one. But this one, let's say the production is nice. It's a nice sounding album. There's a bit of filler on there for me. But yeah, still pretty decent. Still well worth checking out. That's from 1991. 5th album, first album with Bob Rock on production. And that is Metallica, or the Black Album. That's my number 5. My number 4 is their first album, debut album, Kill 'Em All. These are all absolutely 5-star albums, the top 4. Kill 'Em All came out in 1983, and this is produced by Paul Curcio. You can see them looking well young there. Obviously Cliff Burton, the original bass player, and they did lose a lot when he left, I think. Although, anyway, we'll get to that. But yeah, slightly weak production, but that was kind of the thing back in them days. All of the sort of big 4 of the thrash, their first album's production was a little bit weak. But the songs on here are absolutely superb. Not really any bad tracks on here. Hit the Lights, 4 Horsemen, which is an absolute classic track, co-written by Dave Mustaine. He did co-write 4 tracks on here. He co-wrote 4 Horsemen. I think he did Phantom Lord, Metal Militia, and Jump in the Fire were all co-written with Dave Mustaine when he was obviously in the band. Obviously got kicked out for reasons. Motor Breath's really cool track. Jump in the Fire, classic. You got the bass instrumental kind of thing where Anesthesia pulling teeth. Whiplash, super heavy track. Phantom Lord, No Remorse, Seek and Destroy, which they still play live to this day. and Metal Militia, a really heavy track to finish off. But yeah, this was, say, first album, Real Statement, was originally be called Metal Up Your Arse, I believe. But Johnny Z said, no, it's probably not a good idea. You'll get more sales if you retitle it. So I think Cliff renamed it. But yeah, really cool, really heavy album. Say production a bit weak, but still well worth your time, with just all manner of classic tracks on it. That's Kill 'Em All, first album. That's my number 4 from 1983. My number 3 album is their second album, and that is Ride the Lightning, and that's from 1984. Second album, as I say, produced by Flemming Rasmussen, first of 3 that he produced, and they're all my top 3. Yeah, quite a big step up in sort of songwriting terms and production from the first album. This was actually the first Metallica album that I did here, and it kind of blew me away. Just a really cool intro with the sort of acoustic intro from Fight Fire with Fire, goes into a real pummeling track. You got Ride the Lightning, which Dave Mustaine's got a writing credit on that one as well. For Whom the Bell Tolls is an absolute classic track, and then Fade to Black, obviously. So like the old side 1 is pretty much flawless. Side 2 is a slightly weaker. Trapped Under Ice, which is a decent track. Escape, which is okay. I think it's James Hetfield's least favourite Metallica track, apparently. Creeping Death, which is an all-time classic, and the instrumental Call of Cthulhu, which I think is the other Dave Mustaine co-write on there, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, an absolutely legendary album. Title track's amazing. Well, say the side 1 is pretty much flawless. She doesn't really, yeah, there's no filler on the first side. And the second album's all pretty decent, including Creeping Death, which is one of my favourite tracks of theirs of all time. So yeah, number 3, Ride the Lightning. Absolutely classic, fantastic album. My number 2 is the legendary Master of Puppets. That's their third album from 1986, produced by Flemming Rasmussen again. And yeah, this is another absolute stunning album. I remember I originally had it on vinyl because it's quite a long album. It was yeah, like really thin sort of vinyl. Sounded pretty awful, so it does sound much better on CD. They did do a double version of it, I think, on vinyl back in the day. But yeah, what can you say about this album? Once again, it's got the sort of acoustic opening to Battery, goes into the track, but you know, absolutely slays. First track, Master of Puppets, probably their best track of all time. Multi parts and just all sorts of different, just a stunning track. Thing That Should Not Be is a real grindy, heavy track. Sanitarium, Welcome Home is yeah, another absolute stunner. Disposable Heroes, which is an amazing track. Leper Messiah, which a lot of people sort of say is one of the weaker tracks on there, but I really like that. I think the heaviness, the grindingness of that is really cool. You've got the instrumental Orion, and also then to finish off the super heavy Damage Incorporated, which is another absolutely superb track. Yeah, this is a stunning album. To have it at number 2 is well, there must be something pretty good to beat this one out. And it was a hard choice, to be honest with you, between this and my number 1, because they're both excellent albums. They're in their own way. So this could have easily been number 1, and probably will be a lot of people's number 1, and I can understand that. But yeah, for me, number 2. But no dissing involved. It's still an absolute masterpiece. So that only leaves number 1, which you probably worked out, is And Justice for All, 1988, their 4th album. Cliff Burton had tragically died, obviously in a road accident where he fell out of the tour bus in Sweden. And so they got Jason Newsted in to play bass, who was previously the bassist in Flotsam and Jetsam. And also famously, you can't really hear his bass on this album because there's various sort of reasons, but apparently they toured too much and they kept having to turn everything else up but the bass down. But it's pretty much under the insistence of Hetfield and Ulrich that Jason's bass was turned down so you could barely hear it, and then turned down some more. And the production on this album is interesting. It's very sterile. It's very, the drums like click. There's a lot of space in the mix, and so you can't really hear the bass. So why is it my number one? Good question. I don't really know. I just like it the best. It's the songs I think are stunning. They're all like quite long, and just the complexity. It's almost sort of proggy in its sort of like multiple parts for each song. Blackened is a fantastic track to open up, and Justice for All is another absolutely superb, like, yeah, just a superb song. Eye the Beholder, a great track. You've got One, which is obviously super famous, which is sort of starts off a bit ballady and then, you know, goes into what it does do at the end. Short Straw, Harvester of Sorrow, which was the lead-off single. I remember I got that on single before the album that came out, and that just blew me away. That one, you can actually hear the bass a little bit more on that one. Frayed Ends of Sanity, superb track. To Live Is To Die, which is an instrumental one, which is sort of dedicated to Cliff Burton. I think he got a co-write on that one as well, and finishes off with Daisy, which is a mega thrasher. But yeah, it's what I was going on earlier. You know, the production is, you know, strange on this one. It's iffy, but it's just such a cool, multifaceted, just the pinnacle of like, yeah, their, you know, songwriting powers, and it's my number one for that reason, just because there's a lot, there's so many layers you have to listen to. I remember having to listen to this a lot to sort of get into it, and it's one of those that when you get it, you get it. Yeah, just a superb album, easily in my, I would say, top 10 albums of all time, and that's my number one Metallica album, and Justice for All, for the reasons that I've mentioned. So yeah, a few other bits from them as well. I've got the Garage Inc. CD, which is basically many cover versions that they've done. Obviously, these 2 discs, and this has got like some of the, because they did the Garage Days revisited, $5.98 EP, which I remember getting on vinyl from Shades when it came out, which was I got the American import version, which had 5 tracks on it. The UK one that came out over here only had 4 tracks off. It missed off The Weight from Killing Joke, so that's all on here. And to be honest with you, the earlier sort of Garage Day stuff is the best. So things like The Helpless, Small Hours, The Weight, Crash Course in Brain Surgery, Last Caress. You've got Am I Evil and Blitzkrieg on here, Bread Fan and The Prince, which were the B-sides of Harvester, Stone Cold Crazy, So What, Killing Time, and then the Motorhead stuff as well, like Overkill, Damage Case, Stone Dead Forever and Too Late, Too Late. So that's, yeah, that's disc 2, that's all really cool. And then they obviously did some new covers for disc 1, which I think varies in quality. I quite like It's Electric. Sabracadabra, I really like the Sabbath one. Turn the Page, I can probably live without. Things like Lover Man, I can probably live without. The Merciful Fate medley is really cool also. I think Whiskey in the Jar was the single, which is, you know, a cool track, but yeah, it's all right. Tuesday's Gone, Skinner one is an all right one. So yeah, it's well worth having, say, even if just for disc 2, which is for me the strongest of the, you know, of their covers. I think the Metallica covers are possibly better when you don't really know the originals too well. So a few of the ones, like with the ones they did on Hardwired, I wasn't too thrilled with, like Remember Tomorrow, for example. It's just like, well, the Maiden one's way better. The Ronnie James Dio medley, it's like, you know, you're trying to do Ronnie James Dio stuff, and Hetfield's voice is not, you know, the same as Ronnie James Dio's, and his voice has changed. Apparently the first 3 albums he really hates the vocals on there, which I think, you know, they're probably my favourite of his, because he sings less and it's a bit more, I don't know, in keeping with the music, but I don't know, what do I know. This one, my brother like bequeathed me, Enter the Monsters, Metallica. It's like a live bootleg basically. So this is, yeah, the production, the sort of recording quality on this is not fantastic. 76 minutes, it's pretty much stuff from the Black Album onwards, like, and you know, stuff before that. Has got a cover of Hell's Bells on there, the AC/DC classic. A couple of singles, the Until It Sleeps single. This has got the Kill Ride medley on this one, which is a medley, live medley of stuff from Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning. So it's got Ride the Lightning, No Remorse, Hit the Lights, Four Horsemen, Phantom Lord, and Fight Fire with Fire. Worth getting just for that, to be honest with you, because that's really cool. Memory Remains single. It's got the full Outlaw Torn version on it, because I think they had to cut about 30 seconds off of the album version because it was too long for a CD. So worth getting if you're well into that. And Some Kind of Monster CD single with some live stuff on there as well. So yes, that's that one there. It's got live versions of Four Horsemen, Damage Incorporated, Leper Messiah, which they rarely do live, to be honest. Motor Breath, Ride the Lightning, Hit the Lights, and well, an edit of Some Kind of Monster, which is probably for the best. But anyway, that's that one. And also he gave me this one, which I remember when he got this back in the day, and this is really cool. This is the Live Ship Binge and Purge package. This is the VHS version. So you've got like the videos. So it's got stuff from the Justice Tour and the Black Album Tour. It's got the CD, which is really cool. I think it's like 3 CDs. I think it's 3 CDs. 1, yeah, 2, 3. From Mexico City. That's really cool. That's from the Black Album Tour. But yeah, that's a really, really good listen. And it comes with some other bits and pieces, like a sort of booklet. And it's even got the original stencil in there as well. So that's really nice. So that was much appreciated receiving that. Can't get it back in. So that's that. That's mostly my Metallica collection, my Metallica ranking. As I said before, let me know what your favourite albums are. I know that there's different eras of Metallica fans, people that have got into Metallica more recently, so they sort of look on the load and the reload probably more favourably than I do. But let me know what you think, and be interested to hear. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch you next time for the next ranking video. And hope you have a great day. Thanks very much. Take it steady.